She walked into that courtroom looking like the woman everyone had already decided to underestimate. No designer clothes, no entourage, just a quiet strength she didn't bother announcing. Across the aisle, her ex-husband and his new lover smirked, certain today would finally break her. They had no idea the truth she was about to unleash would not only shatter their pride, but rewrite everything they thought they controlled, including her. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. But what no one in that courtroom knew was that she wasn't there to survive the day. She was there to end a nightmare. And as she took her seat, clutching a single folder filled with the evidence she had once been too afraid to gather, even the judge couldn't guess how the next few minutes would turn decades of manipulation into accountability. How would you feel, standing there alone while the people who hurt you waited to see you fall? Emma Hayes sat at the plaintiff's table, holding her breath in that quiet way she had learned over years of being talked over, dismissed, and made to believe her emotions were inconveniences. She wasn't loud, she wasn't confrontational, and she never carried herself like someone ready to fight back, which was exactly why everyone in that room assumed she had already lost. She looked tired, truly tired, the kind that comes from years of carrying burdens no one ever saw. Daniel Cross, her ex-husband, leaned back in his chair with the smug ease of a man who had spent his entire adult life getting what he wanted. As a CEO, he was polished, admired, and known for that charming smile that always made him look reasonable, even when he wasn't. Beside him sat Sabrina, the new girlfriend, clinging to his arm like she had something to prove, tossing Emma small, satisfied glances as though she were watching a show she had already predicted the ending of. The stakes were everything: custody of their son, a fair share of the assets Emma had helped build, and the reputation Daniel had spent months trying to destroy by painting her as unstable. And yet, beneath all that exhaustion, Emma held on to one quiet truth. If they truly knew who she was, they would have never doubted her. Emma kept her eyes fixed on the table as Daniel's attorney rose with that rehearsed confidence, adjusting his tie as though preparing for a performance rather than a hearing. "Your Honor, she contributed nothing, financially or intellectually," he declared, letting each word slice through the room. The gallery shifted, a few people whispering, others glancing at Emma with that familiar mix of judgment and pity. Sabrina leaned closer to Daniel, loud enough for Emma to hear as she muttered, "This will be over fast," as if the outcome had already been carved in stone. Daniel smirked, resting his hand over Sabrina's, as though comforting her through a victory that hadn't even happened yet. Emma swallowed hard, her palms trembling beneath the table, but she didn't look up. No one noticed the way her shoulders straightened just slightly, the smallest sign of a woman preparing for something they couldn't see coming. They had no idea the first major reveal was less than minutes away. Years earlier, Emma had stood in their kitchen listening to Daniel lecture her about the kind of woman he expected her to be. "You don't understand business," he would say, dismissing every idea she offered before she could finish speaking. She remembered standing by the window as he bragged about expanding Crosstech, while ignoring the nights she stayed up balancing the bills he overspent on. He never acknowledged how she quietly covered the gaps his ego created, or how she encouraged him when his confidence faltered. In public he wore charm like a custom suit, but in private he chipped away at her until she questioned her own worth. Through it all, she kept something to herself, a truth she never planned to reveal unless he forced her hand. And now, sitting in this courtroom with everyone waiting to see her break, she knew the moment had finally arrived. Emma kept a secret then, and she was about to reveal it now. Emma's lawyer stood slowly, holding a sealed envelope with the kind of precision that made the entire room fall silent. The judge looked over the rim of his glasses, asking what it contained. "Proof that Emma funded the first phase of Crosstech," the lawyer announced. Daniel let out a laugh, loud and confident. "She? Funded my company?" he scoffed, glancing at the gallery as though inviting them to share the joke. But Emma didn't flinch. She stared straight ahead, breathing evenly as her lawyer placed the envelope on the judge's bench. The judge's expression shifted almost immediately, his eyes narrowing as he examined the first page. Daniel's smirk faded, just a hint, barely noticeable to anyone except Emma. She knew that look. She had seen it years ago when he realized he was losing control. And the truth was, the envelope held far more than just a receipt. It held the beginning of Daniel's downfall. Years before Crosstech became a recognizable name, Emma sat at her grandmother's dining table, the scent of lemon polish still lingering as she signed the final papers, acknowledging a small inheritance meant to help her find her footing in life. She remembered clutching that envelope, unsure of how to use the money wisely, until Daniel came home one night with an excited grin and an idea that existed only on scrap paper. He spoke about potential and innovation, convincing her that this dream of his could change their future. Emma believed in him more than he believed in himself, and she quietly invested most of her inheritance into the early costs he couldn't cover. Daniel brushed off the documents she insisted they sign as symbolic, laughing at the thought she'd ever need them. He thought he could rewrite history, until the documents resurfaced. As Crosstech grew, Daniel changed with it. What started as small poker nights with colleagues turned into hidden debts and frantic calls about overdue balances. Emma would find credit card statements tucked behind bookshelves or emails from lenders that didn't match the stories he told. Rumors of affairs began trickling in. Late-night messages, unexplained trips, the lingering smell of perfume she didn't own. Each time she confronted him, Daniel twisted the narrative, insisting she imagined everything or accusing her of being insecure. The more he lied, the more he spent, the more Emma realized their financial stability was disappearing right under her feet. Quietly, she began documenting everything: receipts, timestamps, screenshots, signed agreements. She had spent years trying to save the marriage, but when Daniel crossed one final line, draining their joint account to cover a gambling loss, Emma stopped trying to fix him. Back in the courtroom, the quiet rustle of papers filled the air as Emma's lawyer placed a second stack of documents before the judge, this time much heavier, far more detailed. Daniel leaned forward with a growing stiffness in his shoulders, and Sabrina's confident expression faltered as pages turned. The judge cleared his throat and announced the finding that shifted the entire mood of the room. Emma hadn't just contributed to the early idea, she had funded 52% of Crosstech's startup capital. A stunned silence followed before whispers spread through the gallery, each one chipping away at the image Daniel had worked so hard to craft. Sabrina shot Daniel a confused look, her grip on his arm loosening as doubt crept in. Daniel's smirk collapsed entirely, replaced by the dawning realization that his version of the story no longer held power. But the most devastating truth wasn't revealed yet.